How's it going, guys? I'm Mike. If you catch me in game or in one of my socials, I go by Hawk. So in today's video, we are going to be covering the lore of Jumpspace. So basically, we've been fed tidbits, and we know a little bit from the things that we experience in game, the things that we get to see. So we're going to go and cover pretty much everything that we know up to this point of we've been told about. So I'm just going to kind of rapid fire off a few things that I've been able to gather. Most of this was gleaned from the conversations that you're able to have with the NPCs. So far, it was confirmed by Vosk and Iris that the materia is a living organism that attempts to take whatever shape it is instructed to do. Now, Vosk, of course, was mentioned that he was curious what kind of things the materia would get up to if it did not have instructions from somebody. But he also mentioned that it is something that is devoid of emotion and feeling. Or morality even. So it's a living organism, but not necessarily a thinking, feeling thing. We're not entirely sure. We don't know a whole lot more than that, other than what we've been told. Now, we have been informed that the Telmari were actually human because there's dialogue from Iris that basically she says she was constructed in a time of limitless technology, speaking of the Telmari empire, and then saying there was a shame to watch it all crumble, but what else could be expected from when humans are in charge? So likely from that we can glean the fact that the Telmari were actually human. Now, it is specifically stated that the Telmari Empire existed eons ago. Now, eons can be billions of years. So it is probably quite a bit of time has passed since the Telmari Empire was and basically in charge of things. It was suggested by some that perhaps they fell at the time of the machine uprising. It would seem that that is not the case. In fact, we're able to learn from Vosk that the virus was actually kind of a construct made by the Telmari as a part of their advanced technology. However, their machines were protected from the corruption virus that has taken over the machines and created the Legion of Steel. It's insinuated by Vosk that somebody would have had to revive that virus, bring it basically back to life. So he brings out that the technology that people are making in this day and age is highly susceptible to the virus, and that it being brought back basically caused it to spread like wildfire, whereas it would have been something that could not have really spread in the time of the Telmari. So we know that it's an ancient technology that has caused the machines to go corrupt. We just don't know much more than that. Now, we are told we have an idea of what Telmari technology is. Basically, we know that the materia was created by the Telmari. Those materia clouds that you collect and the materia that you're using to craft things in mission, that basically comes from the Telmari. Iris confirms that that was something that the Telmari constructed, and then it's interesting that we are still using it. So that's an interesting point. We also get to see the artifacts. Artifacts in the game obviously are of Telmari construction. In fact, it's brought out that Vosk who is the guy who studies the Telmari artifacts here, he was actually found in a Telmari ruin. So we know that these are of Telmari origin, and it is his specialty to study the Telmari. So him bolting in the artifact cabinet into the ship and the things that are brought out by Barrett is that yeah. He's the expert in the Telmari, so these are definitely Telmari technology. So these buffs that we're able to get mid-mission is something that the Telmari would have done. We also have a glimpse into what Telmari looked like when you come over to the DLC for the supporter pack. We know that this suit is of Telmari design. Now, as you can see, it's a rarely preserved, though heavily refurbished, version of an ancient Telmari spacesuit. An elegant spacesuit for a more civilized age. So this Telmari Knight spacesuit, it's basically from the Telmari Empire, although we know that it's been modified, and we don't know what all modifications have been made, but it definitely looks drastically different from all the other suits that we've got. So it seems to have, you know, enclosed visors that aren't made of what appears to be glass in these others. A lot less going on. It's a very simple and elegant suit, but yeah, as you can see, no actual visor to speak of. Even this is not the glass. As you can see, when I go to customize it, the visor color does not change when I alter it here. So We know that that is not glass there. And yeah, so this is kind of a glimpse of what the Telmari suits would look like and what their technology looks like. Between that, the artifacts and the materia that we experienced, we know that they're very sleek in appearance, and that it's very different from what we are using now. As you can see, things like the weapons that we have now are a bit more rugged looking, to be honest. So interesting things, and we're probably going to learn a lot more about the Telmari as we go. Now, what else have we been able to glean? Well, we've been able to learn a little bit about the various characters. For instance, Ander here, commander of the coalition.
And easy, soldier.
He was both a family man and he was a teacher before the uprising of the Legion of Steel. And in fact, he wasn't military at all, but he did take charge and was able to save the lives of some others, such as Richter here. Now, he brings out that he was stationed in Sulfurion, which is a region that we currently have on the map, but don't have unlockable. The Sulfurion Union here, he brings out that he was stationed in Sulfurion when the Legion began to uprise. And so we can gather from that that Ander and Richter were both in this area. And we'll talk more about these areas here on the map and what we know about them here in a moment. We also know that Iris here was built during the time of the Telmari Empire, which we brought out. And she is actually shielded from the corruption virus, which makes sense because the Telmari had shielding against the corruption virus in their time. And since she predates all that, she would have had the shielding, which was then carried over and passed on to Buddy here, which is why he is not susceptible to the corruption virus. Other things we know, Barrett here has a sister. We don't know anything more than that. We know that Vahir was found, and that the corruption virus we can glean from her is not capable of corrupting anything that doesn't have a measure of intelligence. She mentions her coffee maker not being able to go corrupt. It would be a shame, she says, to put it down. We know that Vosk here was some kind of instructor, professor perhaps. He actually mentions a student of his. There was a woman. He says that she had a certain ambition, but it didn't go well for her. We don't know much more beyond that. And then Buzz here, he was a farmer's son. He was stationed in Arcarian. That's where he grew up, apparently. In fact, the mission to go get the Arcarian pizza is pineapple, so he can put it on pizza. That's over here, and this is Arcarian. That's where he's from. Now, we are over here in Atira, known as Atirans, which is one of the far reaches. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to cover the map now. So basically, we are given some snippets, a little bit of a description on each of these regions, even the ones that we haven't been able to unlock yet. Well, of course, we start off in Atira here, and the description is, once considered a fringe region, Atira has become one of humanity's last bastions of resistance against the Machine Legion. So this is our home, this is where we're from, this is where we're stationed, this is where this base is. So we are here in Atira, and as you know, this is your starting area. It has the weakest enemy threats. Next up, we're going to have the Tivian Expanse, which is also reasonably weak, but apparently it was a shipyard. So basically, though a fringe region, the Tivian Expanse proved unexpectedly rich in rare, easily accessible minerals, fueling a vast mining and production network. Many of the ships that plied the outer regions were forged in its orbital yards. Now these facilities stand silent, their skeletal frames held under the constant watch of the machines. So basically, this would have been an area where ships would have been made and materials mined, which is probably why there's so many salvageable runs and things that typically you'll find here. So this is the Tivian Expanse. This is usually the second area that most people unlock, and then usually your next one is going to be the Pillars of Korra. The Pillars served as the great trading hub of the Outer Worlds, thriving on the exchange of raw materials for finished goods. Its fortifications, once meant to safeguard vital trade routes, are now in machine hands, reinforcing the Legion's grip on the region. So, as you can see, as we continue to progress, difficulty continues to ramp up. So here, the hardest difficulty that I've got here in Atira is a challenge rating 3. And that is the same here, though there are more of them in the Tivian Expanse. By the time we get to Pillars of Korra, you can see we're getting challenge rating 4 missions. Now, the next one that we'll usually unlock, although it doesn't necessarily go in this order, will be the Icarian Reaches. Now, you can see this is where we start to get challenge rating 5 missions. Now, the description here is the farming nomads of Icarian could offer little resistance when the coalition spread, or rather corruption spread across their worlds. The Machine Legion swept through their settlements with ease, and the few survivors fled into remote sectors, abandoning vast storage vaults filled with the remnants of their way of life. So that is kind of why the Vault Breach missions kind of get introduced here. We know that these are heavily guarded by the Legion and usually set up as traps, but this was farming land and also used as kind of storage for the people who lived here. So that is the Icarian Reaches, and then the last one that we are currently able to unlock is Kryn. And in the description here says, valued for its ease of access from Jumpspace. Kryn once thrived as a nexus of freight and manufacturing. Now, the Machine Legion has transformed it into one of the most heavily fortified regions in the galaxy, a bulwark guarding the heart of Telmar against the last scattered fragments of the human resistance. So this is where things really dial up. As you can see, the lowest difficulty I've got here in Kryn is a challenge rating 3 mission, and it is brought out because I was recently in discussion with Groove, asking before creating this video about a little bit of lore that he could clue me in, and he did give me a little tidbit I'm going to mention here at the end of the video. But one thing that he did bring out is that things are going to continue to ramp up in difficulty as we get closer and closer to the core. Now, if I were to venture a guess, I would say that we are going to kind of dance around the core before actually unlocking it. And we have all of this other area here on the galaxy map that is not even indicated yet, so a lot of potential for things to expand. But things really start to get interesting as we advance into these sectors that are currently in red that we cannot unlock. The Sulfurian Union here, where I mentioned that Ander and Richter were from, it brings out that the Sulfurian Union emerged after centuries of bitter conflict between rival merchant clans, a hard-won alliance that promised stability and prosperity. But its era of peace was fleeting. The Machine Uprising followed soon after, extinguishing the Union before it could truly flourish. So this makes me think of things like the banking clan from Star Wars. But basically we had merchants, and this was an area of trade and commerce. And as you can see, the difficulty here is also pretty high. Lowest is 3. It's showing 4 missions currently. And one of them is challenge rating 5, one is 4, and 2 are 3. So this is an interesting area. I'm curious to see what we're going to see here. Obviously, the what things look like are going to change as we advance to new areas. We've got new looking areas with each step. And so I'm curious to see what this trade area is going to look like and what new missions it's going to bring. Over here, we have Talon of Corvus. Now, this one, as you can see, again, with pretty high difficulty, it says, cloaking the galactic core with its shape, the Talon was forged through the union of several powerful superstates, united in their bid to seize control of the heart of Telmar. Its towering megacity worlds now stand silent, their populations erased, locked under the unblinking guard of the Machine Legion. So this is the area that kind of surrounds the heart of Telmar, which we'll discuss here in a moment. And so it got wiped out by the corruption virus, the Legion of Steel, pretty quickly, as we know that the corruption started at the heart of Telmar. Now, it's interesting that it brings out that these superstates were fighting in this bid to seize control of the heart of Telmar. So it doesn't really tell us if that was through diplomacy, if that was through conflict, if that was through commerce. We don't really know the details there. All we know is that they were interested in controlling this. So that is kind of an interesting point. I'm curious to see what this is going to be like, but this is obviously megacities. That's going to drastically change the landscape of what we're going to be seeing when we're playing this game, because we haven't experienced megacities yet. We've experienced mostly snowy planets and things and asteroids and stuff like that. So this is really going to be interesting. Now this one also is particularly interesting to me, the Vault of Pyrrhus. It says the vault was regarded as dangerous even before the rise of the corruption. Cultist factions made their homes here, hostile and difficult to contend with, and its treacherous jump space routes discouraged most travelers. As you can see, the difficulty there is pretty high. It says cultist factions. So that's interesting. Cultist factions made their homes here. They were hostile and difficult to contend with. So I'm curious what we're going to find here. When we get here, are we going to find some new faction? Because it seems kind of fitting that, I mean, they could have been wiped out by the Legion and maybe dispersed elsewhere, but that's kind of interesting. I also would expect the areas that we go into that are man-made to be drastically different due to the fact that we are going to be dealing with cultist factions rather than, say, farmers and merchants and such. So I'm curious what we're going to experience when we get to the Vault of Pyrus. That looks particularly interesting. Now, speaking of the Heart of Telmar here, the Heart of the Telmar Galaxy, once the seat of power for the Grand Telmari Empire, now this region harbors the source of the corruption virus. So, as you notice, this only shows 2 available missions, and both are challenge rating 4 or challenge rating 5, respectively. So, honestly, we can expect it to get really hard. Now, Groove did mention that it is going to get harder and harder the closer we get to the core. So, as you can see, it is indeed ramping up in difficulty as we get there. Now, that is quite interesting, and it's going to provide some interesting challenge for those of us who have got a bit of experience under our belts. You can see I'm level 15 currently. I've done most everything there is to do currently in the game, so I am really curious to see what this advanced level is going to look like. Now, final point that I would like to bring out is now we know a little bit about the Telmari. We know that this is the galaxy of Telmar. And we are using their materia, we're using their artifacts, we're even repurposing some of their suits and making them to where they are usable by us. We know that we are going to be finding some interesting things. I suspect, especially since one of the chapters that's coming up soon, I believe, is titled Secrets of the Telmari. So we're going to be learning more about the Telmari Empire and the technology they left behind. But I'm sure we're also going to be learning more about the civilizations that were just recently wiped out when the corruption virus spread and created the Legion of Steel. Overall, I'm very curious to see where the lore goes and learn what else we've got in store. But the one last thing that I would like to bring out that Groove mentioned before I go ahead and sign off here is that we will likely be seeing a return of a particular ship that was teased in some of their trailers. And I've recorded some snippets. This is directly from the footage that was announcing that the beta was being released. And this is the tail end of that YouTube video that Groove put out for us. And it's going to demonstrate the ship that he mentioned. So let's go ahead and play that, and I'll give my thoughts on that after. So that there is the ship that Groove was telling me we are probably going to encounter soon, or have something to look forward to anyway. Not necessarily soon. We do know that on the roadmap we're going to be getting a ground boss. That was mentioned. That's clearly not a ground boss. That's clearly some kind of ship. I'm very curious to see what all that's going to entail. That is quite ominous and nothing like what we've seen so far out of the Legion. So, is that something that we're going to encounter once we get to the heart of Telmar? I'm not entirely sure, guys, but I am very curious to find out. At any rate, guys, that is everything that I was able to glean from my research. As I learn more, obviously, I will bring it to you. If it's something that's worthy of a full video, I'll do a full video. If it's just something that I can throw into a quick short, I'm not going to waste your time, I'll do that. If I missed anything, if there's anything that you'd like to bring out or anything that you feel that is worthy of note or might happen, curious, I'd really like to learn, so please let me know down in the comments. I hope you all are having a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later.